Around this time, 2 years ago, I was meandering the streets of Assisi in Rome while on a pilgrimage with my school. And the point of the journey was to experience the beauty around us and envision how that recognition can lead us closer to discovering our own vocations. So this was the summer before my senior year of college, and I felt this ultimatum in which I would need to have my entire future mapped out before graduation. I had been praying for about a year beforehand that on this pilgrimage I might receive some sign or grace that would lead me closer to discovering that vocation. And it happened. I witnessed such a deep, fulfilling grace within the first 2 days of the pilgrimage, seeing this vision of myself going into a ministerial setting, working with women, studying theology and women's studies in a graduate school setting specifically. And I was filled with this deep sense of peace and gratitude for about 36 hours. And then the next 9 days of the pilgrimage, I spiraled. I dug through all of the ways that it wouldn't work, all of the reasons that I shouldn't do it. And then I spent the rest of that summer and of the fall twisting it in my hands until it hung there, limp and lifeless, stowed away without air or light. Instead of letting it unfold, I constructed walls around it, and I questioned, well, how would that work? And would that fit into my timeline? And oh my goodness, what would so-and-so think of that? We spend so much time as Christians telling ourselves, and too often others, how we surrender to the will of God, how we place all of our trust in Jesus. But when it comes down to the wire, do we? Do we? In the readings and in the gospel this week, many of the characters are experiencing this call. In the gospel specifically, Jesus is approached by a few disciples who say, "I will follow you wherever you go, Lord." And Jesus answers them, "Foxes have dens and birds of the sky have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to rest his head." Is this a warning to us? Is Jesus lamenting the impracticality and idealism of his followers? Is he somewhat patronizingly remarking, "Aw, that's cute"? They think it's as easy as speaking their loyalty into existence, as though by just stating, "I will be faithful," implies a lifetime without questioning and without doubt and without fear. When Jesus finally invites one of the disciples explicitly saying, "Follow me," the disciple replies, "Lord, let me go first and bury my father." And Jesus replies, "Let the dead bury their dead, but you go and proclaim the kingdom of God." And it does sound pretty harsh at first, as though Jesus is heartlessly commanding him, "No, you cannot go and grieve your family." But it really feels in this that Jesus is showing tough love, that he is challenging those walls that the disciples are trying to construct, this gentle no that they're pushing back with. They are quite literally following him around, much like on a pilgrimage, feeling that they are ready and open to the movement of the Spirit in their lives. Yet the second that Jesus verbalizes his desire for them to be co-ministers with him, saying, "Follow me," the disciples automatically push back and say, "Okay, but first," putting their own priorities and timelines and desires ahead of a divine invitation. This struggle to fully surrender to the will of God is a common theme in the readings this week and in the gospel and of my own journey as well. In the competitive and capitalist U.S. society in which I have been raised, the word surrender often has a connotation of giving up, of quitting, of throwing in the towel because the fight isn't worth the energy. But in this Christian tradition, it's quite the opposite. It means letting go and giving in because We are so fully invested in hearing what the Creator has in store for us. Instead of fighting against the tide of the divine movement within us, we are called to follow, to answer not with, okay, but instead with gratitude and restfulness. This is something I personally grapple with, and I think that I can safely bet that most people do too. We get so caught up in the preparation that we don't appreciate the invitation. But the marvelous thing about God, about this all forgiving, all patient, universal love, is that even when we don't answer quote unquote correctly, she finds a way of repeating herself. And she will continue asking until we're ready. It's not a one and done. It's not an offer that she'll take back. It's a cycle. It's a pattern. It's a living and breathing relationship. We won't always get it right the first time, but we will eventually discover that sweet bliss that accompanies openness and surrender. We must simply continue witnessing and embracing and resting in the beauty of the invitation so that when we hear it, we can answer with a grateful and resolute, thank you. Yes.